physical abuse, like I said, started out with spankings, and then there was like choking, a lot of throwing us around, like throwing. My mother was thrown through a glass table. I was thrown up against the wall. I was held by my throat. I was told that I was a slut. He slut shamed me. He was white, so he would use my race, my biracialness. He would compare me to my mother, and he would say things like, "You're just like your mother," when he would be abusing me. It was just playing us against each other too. There were four of us, and so he would treat one of us better than the other one, or allow one of us not to get a beating in order to keep us at each other, and creating that dynamic of him being the authoritarian of our family was very, it was so skilled, it was crazy. I actually went to Washington, D.C. With my government class, and we learned about women's rights, and we learned about human rights and social justice issues. And when I heard these things, these were things that were being violated in my home. And so when I came back home, I started explaining these things to my mother. And that was really the break. And then I left home. The problem with that was I never had any counseling, I never had any therapy, and all I knew was domestic violence. And then I jumped into a relationship, perpetuating the cycle. So it started off with the arguing, the yelling, and the screaming. That's what I thought we were supposed to do when we didn't get along. And then it escalated. He drank, and so he would get drunk. And then there was the verbal abuse. Again, I was slut shamed. I was called a whore. I was made to feel like my worth was based on how obedient I could be to him. And I thought that that was what love looked like. Love looked like me being the best servant to my partner. And I thought that because when my mother was being good and when my mother was serving, she was rewarded with kindness. It was only when you weren't acting the way he wanted you to act is when things would get bad. Coming home, his abuse was different. He would try to keep me up. He'd come in and wake me up out of bed, knowing I had work tomorrow, under the influence, playing the music so loud. He wasn't big on throwing things, but then it escalated to grabbing me and shaking me, holding me, and then I got pregnant. And things got really bad then. So after I became pregnant, he felt really comfortable with the way he treated me. He wasn't coming home anymore. I would be at home alone, not knowing where he was at, what he was doing, and then when he would come home, he would bring people with him and have giant parties, and I would go to my room. I was like an object, like a thing. I worked. I had stability with that, and I started to change because I was now thinking of what I wanted for my child. He was getting comfortable, but I was starting to change. And ultimately, my daughter was the reason why I left, because I thought that giving her a father and a family was what my job was to do. That's what I was supposed to do. I no longer had a life. I was not deserving of a life. I had made the decision to bring a child into this world, and now I must become the parent martyr. And one day she asked me, Mom, when can we not live with Dad anymore? And the next week we were out, I left.